the subject or the topic for tonight: should there be limitations to loyalty? What does loyalty look like? Is there a such thing as loyalty to a fault? Is loyalty at your own expense acceptable? Where do you draw the lines when it comes to giving your loyalty to somebody? Does your past matter, right? If you've been loyal to someone or multiple people in your past, and that has burned you in some way, they have betrayed you in some way, does that mean that people in the future are affected? Does that mean that they that no one will ever get your true loyalty based on what you've been through? Or does it mean you should forget what you've been through and focus on the new person? And I'll tell you where this topic came from, because I want to kind of focus on loyalty in relationships as like really the main spotlight. It may travel into friendships, family, etc., and that's fine too. But I wanted to start with relationships because I was having a discussion this week with a married couple, and they were kind of just asking me some questions on just some things that kind of popped in their head as they observed not only their union, but some people from their past coming into their life now, or trying to, one of them had an ex, um of like a 30-year ex. Like, this is somebody who just kind of came back in, trying to shoot their shot, right? And she had to let him know, I'm married. And he was like, happily, are you happily married? And then, we had this whole kind of discussion. But it um it brought to my attention the subject of loyalty. And they were also talking about, how at what point do you say enough is enough when it comes to marriage, because they were talking about other married couples that they know. um when it comes to something like marriage, what are the limitations, if any, of loyalty? Or is it till death do you part, right? And as I'm talking, feel free if you have any opinions or any responses, any feedback on this. I definitely want to see how you guys feel about it and be able to kind of have this dialogue, because loyalty is a common request when we're talking about, you know, what are the traits when you ask the average person who's single, what are the traits that you want in somebody? It's definitely loyalty. So it's very common, but I think for a lot of people it may be subjective, because there are extremes to it. And do you as a person believe, till death do us part? I know a lot of people who are religious are of the belief that, there is no divorce. There is no saying, I'm out, right? And so I'll kind of give you my perspective on this, right? So on in the area of, let's say there's abuse, right? You have somebody who is abusive, maybe, manipulative, or somebody, who is actively doing harm. It's of my opinion that you have the right to protect yourself at all times. It sound like a boxing match, but you have the right to always protect yourself and to be loyal to you when you are in a position where your well-being is at stake, and you may have children involved in a situation. I don't see any reason to stay in a scenario that is threatening to your health, right? Um, Now let's say, on the other hand, there's a situation where you marry somebody under the premise that this person is going to, quote, make you happy, right? And then the traditional 1 to 3 years occurs, and you encounter maybe some rough times, maybe some lack of communication, uh, or you just don't feel as happy as you expected to feel, right? Now, in this situation, the temptation may be to leave for some people. Now, for me, I can't tell you whether it's good to leave or good not to leave, but what I can say is that a marriage built on that premise, as far as having the expectation of another person to make you happy, is built on a faulty and weak foundation from the gate. And so it's almost a situation where you're setting yourself up to fail. You're setting the marriage up to fail because the expectations of that other person are too high, and you're requesting something that you can't generate yourself. And I think that's a big problem as well. And I'll get to that in a second, but I wanna see what Tay has to say on it. Go ahead.
First things first, I want to give some flowers. Nikki, I love you. I love you as a person. You are flipping amazing, and I never get to have a space with you. So I want to do that, and I also want to give you your flowers, Marcus. Let me tell you something. Um, you helped me so much because you helped me clock that T about myself and make me a better person. Your spaces actually did help me with my relationships, and I'm actually engaged now. And so I just want to say that your your talks really did help. They Your little sessions on your podcasting helped. You as a person is flipping amazing, and I am very thankful for you. Um, this as for this topic, um if we're gonna be I agree and disagree with when it comes to certain things, because people that are old school really put the deaf do us part to heart, but especially like in particular churches, I because of I have families members that are therapists in the marriage um department in related to religion and so on. There are biblical verses, because people were like, death to us part, death to us part, that don't mean this, that don't mean that. But there are chapters that do verses that do talk about abuse. There are chapters that talk about infidelity. There's chapters on particular things that would justify a divorce. Some people use those same chapters to say don't get a divorce, because they would say, you didn't read the Bible? It says God hates divorce, but you didn't finish that chapter. Just like parents will say, love and honor your parents, love and honor your parents. They don't quote the, but don't tempt your kids. They don't quote that part. So I'm only saying this because I grew up with my parents married. I don't know a divorced person in my life, so I can't really speak for those people. But what I do know is I met people that stayed abused. And you have to understand, you can do death do us part, but what are you teaching your children when you're getting abused and almost dying? And then you're teaching your son that a man can beat on a woman. You're teaching your daughter to accept that type of love. Yes, you may want to be on some. My kids grew up in a two-parent home. Was it healthy though? Was it healthy? No. You can say all my kids have one father, but was that a good father? Was that a good mother? You can brag about all those things, but at the end of the day, God still wants you to. I'm just speaking on a religious point because I know a lot of people use religion. God still wants you to have a great foundation. He still wants you to have generational wealth in some sort. It's a generational wealth if you're teaching your children to not honor their partner. You're not honoring them when they become one flesh. Think of it this way. When you become one flesh, will it make sense to harm your own body? Do things that harm your own body that God took time to make, and you're harming it, almost causing it to die? And I'm not saying that you're getting beat to death. Think of it that way. Would God approve of you beating on yourself to the point of death? 10 commandments. Do not murder. You murder your partner when you're one flesh, you still just think of it that way. If y'all one flesh, that's, I know I'm going a little overboard, but I'm just saying some people get divorces and be like, one and done, I'm done. One be like, I tried my best. At the end of the day, God grant divorces for a reason. He's a forgiving God. That's the reason for repentance. So I'm just saying, I'm only just saying towards that, the abuse part. The abuse part. There's a reason why Jesus died on the cross. There's a reason why we're allowed to repent. So if those, for the people that divorce, as long as you actually tried in your marriage and you know that you gave it your all, then I don't see nothing wrong with it. I don't see nothing wrong with it. It's different is I'm over it. He lost his job. He broke. Um, she's not the same way that she used to be. Because when I dated my partner before he became my fiance, I didn't go off of looks. Cause I'm gonna be real. He's fine, but I had to go off of morals because when you get older, you're not going to be the same cute. I need to know if we got the same mindset. I need to know if we got the same morals. And when I marry you, I'm marrying your family. How do you treat your mother? How's your relationship with your mother, your father, your sisters? What's your beliefs on gender roles? I need to know these things. I need to see what you look like depressed. I need to see what you look like broke. I want to learn these things because I need to learn how to love you. Some people get into relationships and think that their partner is their therapist. I don't got time for that. I don't have a degree in that. I'm not your doctor and I'm not your therapist. I am your partner and I'm willing I we all got flaws in us that people don't want to deal with. Like I am clingy, I am possessive, and that's just who I am. And when that right person comes, you would know because I swear on everything I love. Marcus, you clocked my tea and I got it together. I did not think that I was worthy of love. I did not think that I was going to get love. It was you that showed me to change my mindset. It was you that helped me really get myself together because these therapists that I had weren't clocking tea how I needed it. I felt like they was being yes men, writing down stuff, and they weren't helping me. It was you that let me express myself, that gave me those one-on-one sessions and actually helped me as a person. And now, less than a year and a half, I got a whole almost husband. Like December 15th is my date. And I didn't think I would be here. I did not think I would be here. And when I say he loves me down, he loves me down. I didn't think that a person can love me the way that he loves me. So I can only say for a person like you, you're for people that be thinking, oh, these are just conversations. But if you really apply his messages and don't be on some, but I'm different. Actually, just listen for a second. Actually, listen and try to take the words into account. You don't gotta agree with everything. You don't. But if you're really having a listening ear, I really do think Marcus can help you. And I just want to give my flowers to you because above trauma, you did help me get above my trauma. You did teach me how to love better. And because I love better, I'm actually getting the life that I always want. I'm trying not to cry. I'm not emotional, but I'm very thankful. And that's all.
No, I I appreciate those words 100%. Thank you for the flowers. I graciously appreciate that. And this, I'm congratulations on everything too, and how your life is unfolding. It's not only a testament to what I was able to impart to you, but it's more so a testament of you taking heed to the information and applying it and being consistent with it and just allowing it to unfold and be a blessing for you. So that's really what makes all the difference for me, is to be able to hear that everything worked in your favor, whether you thought it did or not. Because a lot of times, there could be fear involved, or there could, a lot of us are jaded. Sometimes if we have a certain type of past and things don't work out, um, we may think, well, it's probably not going to work. But to keep going anyway, to keep pushing through anyway, and it is really something amazing to see. And I wish you continue blessings, with your new partner, and definitely keep tuning in, because it's not over. Now you're in a position where it's about the maintenance, it's about the relationship growth, it's about, like you said, continuing to explore each other, learn each other, and growing together, making sure that you're on the same page, so that this word divorce doesn't have to creep in. Because I think that's really one of the keys for me, is for both parties to be on a self-aware healing journey, right? And to reinforce each other's growth, and to co-create happiness, not to expect your partner or potential partner to bring happiness with them into the relationship. Because why do we expect them to bring it in if we can't generate it ourselves? If we can't heal and grow ourselves, why do we expect this person, or why do we burden this person to be everything that we need in life? That's setting ourselves up for perpetual failure. So shout out to you. I want to get Lola in here. Thanks for being patient. Lola, what's on your mind?
Hey Marcus, thank you for allowing me to speak in your space. I'm so glad I caught you live. Um, I also want to give flowers to Tay. You had that was a beautiful testimony, beautiful, beautiful testimony, and I appreciate you for that. To the title of the room: Are there limitations to loyalty on relationships? There should be, but we all know it's very hard sometimes. Um, Sometimes we can be too loyal, and it's difficult knowing when to cut the cord, especially when it's somebody you love. Sometimes we have to make decisions that break our heart but bring us peace. You know, I'm speaking from friendships, uh, our partners, with our children, in all aspects of life. You know, um, yeah, sometimes we can be too loyal. It took me a long time to realize the difference between like a real friend and somebody I just been knowing a long time. Cause there's a difference there, you know. Sometimes we throw that word friend around just because we might have been knowing somebody, since 10th grade, and they still in your life, but that doesn't mean they're really your friend. And sometimes people know how to perfectly tuck the sinister stuff in between the good stuff. So when you try to call them out, then they gaslight you and say, well, but remember, but I did this for you. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, you have to know that you have to notice that kind of thing. You know, I had to really like evaluate some friendships, like 30-year friendships. You know, I really had to evaluate that. Um, as far as with our partners and our husband and wife, and I feel like the word tradition can be dangerous because it can box you in. You know what I mean? It can keep you places where you unhappy, like Tay said, as far as religion, and a lot of times it doesn't always fall on physical abuse. Sometimes people just fall out of love. It doesn't mean you have to be enemies, or it doesn't mean you're getting physically abused, but it could just mean that it's just not working. Some people, marriage, you have to work on it just like anything else. You don't just get married and say, okay, we married, and you have to work on it. You do things to. I know couples who stop kissing when they get together and been together a long time. They don't even tongue kiss. You know why? Why after you've been with your man or your woman for years, they stop kissing you? Like sticking their tongue in your mouth, kissing. You know what I mean? Not just pecks, like passionately kiss, like you did when you first got together. You know what I mean? So it's like you can't. I don't believe in till death do you apart. I think that can be dangerous. Um, sometimes things happen, and that's no slight on your character. Sometimes we get so caught in tradition and what people going to think about us, what people going to say about us, that we stay in these unhappy relationships. you know I think that can be dangerous, for real.
Yeah, definitely. And to your point, what a lot of times acts as that electric fence that keeps us from releasing certain people or disconnecting from certain people is guilt. Guilt, guilt and fear can work interchangeably and uh, really be self-sabotaging, right? If I leave this person, I fear that now, because I've known them this long, I fear that if I leave this person alone, even though they're toxic for me, that I will not be able to reminisce with them no more about the good times we had before. Or I feel fearful, or you maybe feel fearful that it will break up it'll mess up other connections that you might have, mutual connections, or you may feel that they may take offense to you disconnecting from them and not understand where you're coming from and resent you for your choice to protect yourself, right? Because a lot of times, to be honest, we're all adults, but sometimes it's hard to have adult conversations with other adults. Sometimes other adults have such built-in walls against accountability and awareness that the things you're maybe complaining about, or the things that make you want to leave them alone, or the things that don't resonate anymore, they would not understand what you're even talking about. And so it makes it even hard to have the adult conversations to say, hey, like, we've been kicking it, I've known you for a long time, but it seems like you're moving in a different direction. Your actions are different, and this no longer aligns. Because under the subject of loyalty, like, to your point, a lot of times we carry long-term associations, and out of loyalty we deal with things that are like, when you really sit back and look at it, you're like, why am I dealing with that? Why how can this possibly be a friend, right? Because one thing that I, being in the mental health field, I hear a lot of people kind of discuss or talk about within their circles are situations where they can't they have so-called friends, but they feel uncomfortable telling their own friends about the wins that they have in life, because either A, they don't want to offend that person, B, that person will minimize their victory, or C, that person will monopolize the conversation and totally disregard it. Now, what kind of friendship can possibly still be called a friendship where you can't celebrate the wins? Why are we even connected? Because I know me, I'm going to consistently win. So if you're going to be in my circle, we're going to talk wins. What, we going to talk losses all day? We're going to talk wins, right? Because wins reinforce wins. But the problem is some people can't even be happy for their own friends. You realize how disconnected that is, and essentially how toxic and corrosive that can be to your own growth, right? We're in a position where we can't afford to have close connections with individuals where we can't be comfortably fully expressive, because that person's response may diminish our energy. That happens on the street. And I don't know if any of you have experienced this. Sometimes I've felt more congratulatory energy from strangers than some people that I've known since high school, since sandbox, since grade school, right? So it's not how long you've known them. I think uh, one thing is that when I think of friendships, certain connections, right? I don't believe that friends can be tenured. I think it's a situation where it's a daily audition for me. It's a daily audition for me, like, because I know what it takes to heal yourself, to rebuild yourself after tragedies, and to constantly be in a certain type of motion. And when you do that, you realize everything that it took to become the person you are today, and then tomorrow, and then next year. And to simply provide loyalty to people based on how long you've known them versus their actions, versus their energy, their level of support, right? Who they actually are, means that you're tying yourself to somebody who you're giving free reign to act any kind of way and still receive your support. Now, I would argue that that would be considered self-sabotage. To give somebody free reign means you don't have any boundaries. And to not protect or create or enforce boundaries in a lot of cases is dealing with a self-esteem issue. Because and that would a lot in most cases would travel even back further to some childhood trauma there. Not always, but in a lot of cases. Lola, you had something?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a quick question. A lot of times, um, some of us become people pleasers because of that trauma, past trauma, not making it hard for us to set limits. You've had sometimes some people just are born with it. They just have a certain glow about themselves, right? They're just driven. They're special in life. I've met a lot of them here on the app. Some of them is in this space. You could just feel their glow. even through the phone, right? And I think sometimes they become people pleasers because you have a lot of people who they are triggered by that type of energy, and they're not very nice to you. So you feel like you have to go out of your way to please people, to get them to like you and things of that nature. So I guess my question would be is how do you get past becoming a people pleaser, healing, or is it trauma, or is it just because of your light? And how do you get past that?
Got you. Got you. Excellent question. And I'm before I break that down, that leads me to the jumbotron. Definitely on the second slide, I'm having a free webinar tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern. You still got time to register for that. I'm going to be talking about a lot of the keys to healing trauma, but specifically Black American trauma. I'm going to be talking about. So definitely make sure you can get there if possible. Again, that's tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's free. Come through. We're gonna chop it up. We're gonna go deep and set a lot of these things straight because these are excellent questions. And to the point of people pleasing, right? So let's I'm gonna paint the picture for you, like where it comes from, and then talk about how to reverse it. And I'll talk more in depth that later on. But people pleasing from a childhood standpoint, it's a response to feeling abandonment. And abandonment can carry many forms, right? Let's say you were living in a two-parent household, and then your parents got divorced, dad moved out, and you saw him less time, or he had another family, moved out of state, and the contact grew less and less. You could the abandonment spark could happen there. Let's say one of your parents passed away. The abandonment could happen from that. Let's say you had a situation where you had, or even being adopted carries abandonment energy to a degree as well. Also, let's say if you have a parent who has a medical condition or a psychological condition or an addiction, anything that pulls them away from being able to properly parent, properly pour into you, properly be emotionally available, properly form your positive self esteem, anything that separates or interrupts that process usually creates the people pleaser personality, right? And I say personality because between the ages of 0 to 7, the childhood environment is most effective during that time period because that's when you're the most suggestible. That's based on the brainwave state that you're in. Everything that happens is building your subconscious programming. So your personality usually gets built within that age range. So if abandonment happened, abandonment's getting pulled in too. But the thing is, your mind tries to adapt to circumstances, and when something happens that makes you very shocked or fearful, it creates a response to compensate or to basically to try to avoid it happening again, right? So let's say your mind said, okay, dad just left and I've had to live with this pain. I don't want to live with pain. How can I keep people around me and keep people from leaving me? Well, as a kid and as you grow, the people pleasing part of it is an attempt to keep people around. If I meet individuals who I want to be friends with, and I learn everything that they like, or I learn what I can do that they like when I do for them, or when they ask me to do something, that's my opportunity to do those things because if I do, they'll like me. If they like me, they'll stick around. because I can't deal with somebody leaving me again. We got to understand, like, it seems very powerful, because how can something that happened when I was 4, 5, 6 end up sticking with me my entire life? It sounds very, it's almost like it feels like a curse at times, because you're trying to undo something that you didn't put there. But I've spent my life working on helping people to reverse it, right? And to work against that trend, because the mind is very overprotective. And when certain things happen, it can feel like life or death, because it is. If you think about the years between 0 and 7, let's think early childhood. Literally, it's a life or, whether if your parents are taking care of you or not, that is a life or death scenario. There's all types of studies done with newborns who, if they're never picked up, they pass away. This is like, to not have a parent around who's in control of when you eat, how much you eat, when you use the bathroom, making sure that you are taken care of and you have everything that you need. That's a life or death scenario. And so is social connection. We're wired for social connection and integration. It has to happen. We're not born to be in isolation. So the this is a life or death scenario, and it rings so many alarms that your mind has to figure out a way, or feels as though it has to figure out a way to prevent it from ever happening again. But the irony is that it almost accelerates the abandonment, because let's think of this: if you have a people pleasing personality, that means that you have trouble, and this is just in an extreme. You're having trouble saying no to the people around you, right? So that means that whenever somebody asks you something, 9 times out of 10 you're going to handle it, right? So in most cases, that attracts people who are very needy and who are extreme takers. So if you're an extreme giver, they are you attract extreme takers. Extreme takers do not reciprocate. They don't pour into you. They don't give back to you. They take and then they run off. So if you're attracting people who are parasitic and come and take your resources and then don't exhibit any loyalty, you've essentially created a new circle of abandoners as an adult. So not only did you not escape it, you surrounded yourself with people who are prone and wired to abandon you every day, which is why a lot of times there's people who, and you may identify with this, people who, when everybody's going through it, you the one on call for that. You helping this one through somebody passed away. This one got COVID. This one's depressed. This one got anxiety. This one breaking up. You're the person, the phone off the hook. You the dispatch. You picking up all the calls and you making the house visits and all of that, and you helping support. When you going through something, don't nobody check on you at all. What you could be in there dead. Nobody's checking in. Nobody's seeing what's going on. You giving all kind of hints in the way that you talking. How you doing? I'm all right. I'm making it. I'm surviving. Right. That's usually an indication for somebody to say, "Hey, what's up with you? You all right?" You don't get none of that. And so a lot of times the friendships that you may have, decades of time, long term friendships, you got to coach them on, like, the fact that you're not getting the same support. It's almost like you have to teach the people around you how to be supportive. That's not something you should have to teach at a grown age, but you're teaching, like, you're speaking to the deaf, because you've already created your circle and carefully, subconsciously selected them to re-abandon you, right? So it's a really tricky thing. You know, Carl Jung said, what you resist persists, right? What you try to fight so hard against is what you're going to rapidly invite every time, right? And the fear gets so embedded that you almost can't stop. And as you grow from a child, let's say you did have a parent that was missing, or you didn't get enough uh, nourishment on a self-esteem level from your parents, right? Then you will literally build your self-esteem from how well you can be there for other people, right? So let's look at that, and let's look at why it's so difficult to stop, why it becomes so difficult and so embedded in your personality. Because at some point, probably early adolescence, you started to say, I get, I feel, I at least I feel like people like me when I do things for them. You know, that's when I get the attention. That's when I get, the accolades. And so that a part of your self-esteem gets connected to being how well you can do for others. Now here's another trap. So let's say that that's the mechanism, right? You get small self-esteem kickbacks when you overworking for everybody else. When we fast forward to adulthood, it's very likely you're going to end up in a job that is exploiting your over sacrifice, and the overwhelm continues. So now your friends are draining you, your family's draining you, you might have a partner that's draining you, and then you on your job 8+ hours a day, you're in a scenario where you're not being properly compensated for all the job responsibilities that have been put on you. And when employers smell that they got somebody on the job that is willing to go above and beyond, and all they need is, a pat on the back and some verbal recognition, and nothing else, you in for it. You in for it. And the problem is, which is why I'm such a strong advocate for self-care and rebalancing, is that you're exhausted, but you don't know how to get off the train. Like you don't know how every day you find yourself, and it's really amazing too, because it's almost like you're you're driving a car with no gas, no oil, but it's still running somehow. Like so, knowing that you're scraping the bottom of the barrel on a daily basis, you would think that level of exhaustion would warrant somebody to reach out, like, hey, like, you good? Are you all right? Like, some sort of support, but it doesn't, because you designed everything around you. You chose that job, right? Or at least you stayed as well. You chose it and stayed. You might have chose this partner knowing that they were, taking everything and not giving, and you stayed there. You chose this circle and you kept these people around where you didn't choose. The trauma chose them because they were familiar to your childhood environment. They were familiar, and what just as a people, we have to move beyond the familiar into what we design for ourselves, how we want our lives to look, how we want to be thinking on a daily basis, what type of boundaries we want to have. And that's really what, I'm going to be talking about later, as far as, just my program and my approach, because my approach is very, it's a little different than, just traditional, mental health support therapy, different things like that. Like because it's all encompassing and it's based on consistency of strategies. The only way to change subconscious programming is through repetition. You have to create a cycle of repetition that is counter to the patterns you already have. Um, and so I'll touch on that later. But let me get to you, Lola. You had something else?
Yeah, really quick. I'm sitting up here like writing notes. I mean, this is amazing. I appreciate everything that you're saying. You hit a nail on the head when you said uh when we get like a natural, basically you said a natural dopamine when we help people, right? Because we feel like we've been abandoned. And I think that's kind of what I went through. Like I grew up in a two-parent home. My mother and father were married, and until they're deceased now. But I did kind of have a mother who was kind of cold, um, and it shaped and molded how I chose to mother my children. Like my mom she wasn't really a huggy, kissy type of mom, right? She was kind of, so I felt abandoned. That was my abandonment. That was, when I went through my spirit, like my healing journey, I realized that was my trauma. I didn't get that connection with my mom. I know she loved me, but it's just a certain, I'm Gen X, so we basically raised ourselves for real. So I made a conscious decision to make sure that I was going to be a touchy, kissy, affectionate type of mom, like hug you, kiss you. I made it my business to be like that with my kids. We still like that to this day. I wouldn't let them go to bed angry at each other and shit like that. Things that can fester into adulthood, and then you become adults, and then you got these walls in between each sibling. Like I didn't want that for my kids, and I knew it could possibly stem from that trauma that I went through with my mom. Like I had friends, homegirls, who had mothers who never told them I love you, or never kissed them or hugged them, and I would feel so bad for them, and I could relate to them on a certain level, and I know that does affect you. And a lot of times I think maybe my mom had some undiagnosed stuff going on, bipolar a little bit. In those days they didn't diagnose things, so I gave her grace in that manner. But I'm saying, as Black moms, we get a bad rap for being hard. Like we raise our daughters, but we coddle our sons. We get that title. And I said, I didn't want that to be me. I made sure that I wanted to not be my mom. I wanted to be better than my mom with my daughter. Yeah, the shit wasn't perfect, but we're very tight to this day. But I just knew that my childhood trauma was that having that distant mom that wasn't very touchy feely. And I know as Black people, a lot of us do go through that. We suffer from that. A lot of us don't like to talk about it, but it does play a significant
This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.
role, I think, in our lives. But I just wanted to give that testimony. I don't want to be too long-winded. But yeah, even nurses make sure when you first have your baby, they document it, like skin to skin. Are you having skin to skin contact? It definitely matters. Even into adulthood, it matters. And I'll end there.
No, for sure, for sure, and I appreciate you bringing that to light, because for you, like let's kind of paint the picture. If you're in a home environment where mom, the quote nurturer, is not giving that energy, that affection, those words of affirmation, and confirming that there's that she loves you and things like that. Like, although now as an adult you can understand parts of it to a degree, and intellectualize it, like maybe she, had this going on, or maybe she had trauma herself, or maybe, she was, had her own experiences that have made her this way. Yes, we can understand it now, but the damage is already done because the need wasn't fulfilled at the time. So at that time, as a child, you don't as children, we don't look at mom and dad and say, yeah, dad's an alcoholic, but he at 4 years old, you're not saying, dad got it. Dad has demons. Sometimes he come in here crazy, but I give him grace because maybe he's going through something. Maybe he has some transgenerational trauma. No 4-year-old is talking like that or thinking like that. You see your parents' actions as a reflections of your worth. Your worth is connected to how they treat each other and how they treat you in front of you. So if you are lacking the love in any category, you're gonna blame yourself for that. You're gonna search yourself for the answer. Why couldn't dad be there? Why couldn't mom say I love you when I know other kids or other like you may have seen it somewhere else, and then so why doesn't she say that to me, right? And then the competition begins. Then you say, well, I must not be good enough to receive the I love yous and the affection. So what do I have to do to get it? What do I have to do or become for her to release that love, right? So then it changes the mental dynamic. So now there's this thought process of actions, like a merit system. Like I'll get love when I do something for somebody else. I'll get love, affection, attention if once I help somebody else, or do once I get perfect grades, or once I get on this team and hit a championship with the school football team, or like you start to chase it based on actions. So if your self-esteem as a child is based on actions, it's no wonder that as adults so many of us are overwhelmed, because you're working for the love you think comes from you acting. If love comes from your actions, you can't go to sleep, because for 8 hours you ain't got no love, right? You're loveless for 8 hours because you're not doing anything for anybody when you're sleeping. If you kind of, I'm just saying that to paint the picture, right? So with that mindset, it's no wonder that there's rescuer personalities and people pleasing and these different perfectionism, these different habits and parts of personality that a lot of us may have, because we think we can earn our love. We think we can be perfect enough to deserve love, right? We can achieve enough to deserve love, right? We can help our parents into loving us. We can, support other people into loving us in return, right? But again, the paradox in it is that by having this mentality, you attract a lot of people that'll keep you on that treadmill because they don't reciprocate. We can't love people into being reciprocators. We can't love anyone into loving us back. We can't love anyone into being a better person. We can't love the toxicity out of somebody, right? So we have to understand, like, the race is not, outward. The focus has to be inward. We're not gonna find the love by running it down. We're not gonna find the love by doing any and everything for a certain individual, because let me show you the breakup dynamic when it comes to people pleasers, rescuers, right? What tends to happen is you spend 1,000% of your resources putting into this partner, trying to rescue them, rehabilitate them, fix them up, and you end up maybe accomplishing some sort of goal where maybe there's certain milestones. You trying to get them a job, you trying to get them polished up, you trying to help this person through a death in the family. And once you do that, in most cases, that person up and leaves, or they found somebody else, right? They betray you and get up out of there. Now you looking at it like, how did that happen? Because you weren't dealing with a reciprocator, but you had the expectation that they were, and you thought you were going to love and rescue and rehabilitate them into becoming the person that would return the investment. But that's not something that was guaranteed from the beginning. And so the expectation, erroneously, the expectation is always there that this person is going to reciprocate. But why would somebody else give to you consistently? And I want y'all to hear this. Why would a potential partner give to you consistently if you don't give to yourself consistently? You're not even mirroring the qualities you want in that partner. You teach through energy. You teach your potential partners how to treat you by how you treat yourself. And if you don't give to you, if you're overworking, over giving, over sacrificing, if you're not giving yourself the bare minimum, and speaking back to the topic, if you're not giving yourself loyalty, right? If you're not being loyal to you, if you're not pouring into self, if you're not self-nourishing, utilizing consistent self-care, if you're not pouring back into you on a mandatory daily basis in some way, shape, or form, how could you possibly energetically attract somebody who's going to give and reciprocate consistently? You can't even do it, right? And so that's the work. It's not trying to convince, it's not wasting resources and energy trying to create a reciprocal person who is not one, because that's how you end up with years of, just different exes that you regret, even just time frames in life that you wasted with the wrong individuals who didn't deserve your loyalty. The switch is to create a self-dedication of building and repairing and healing and all of these different things, to the point where you no longer resonate with those taker type of people, right? And you begin to protect your energy from them, because now you have something to protect, because all of your resources are stored within self, and you're able to make the decisions that are necessary in your circle. Because the other part of it is the self work also comes with adjusting your life according to the new version that you're working towards, which may mean cutting some people off that you've known for a long time, which may mean having tough conversations with certain people, which may mean just up and ghosting certain people that you know that are toxic and never get the hint, who you let in during vulnerable times, people who can't celebrate the wins with you, people who are secretly working to your demise, people who are constantly undermining you, people who smile at you but are envious of traits that you have that they don't have. These are tough choices, and I get it. These are tough choices. But aren't you worth the choice? Aren't you worth those decisions? Aren't you worth the results of that decision? Aren't you worth freeing yourself from people who are anchoring you to the floor? There's a lot of people that are upset when you start to grow. I'm gonna be honest with you. When you start putting boundaries in place, when you start saying no to people, when you start maneuvering different, when you start to glow different, when you start to do things for your damn self, when you start to say no to certain invitations to things based on your own personal energy and your needs at the time, a lot of people are going to be upset. But that's how you know you're doing the right thing. Because if you start doing for self and you start focusing on self repair and self care, and that offends people, they've already identified themselves as ops. Because the people who are truly there for you, when you start engaging in self care and you start celebrating wins and you start repairing yourself and you start that positive journey, they're going to be happy for you. And that identifies where they should be. It's a clear line in the sand. Everybody that resonates on this side, everybody who doesn't gets on the other side. And they will reveal themselves as you create and enforce these new boundaries for yourself. When you start talking about self care or dreams and goals, and people start changing the subject, laughing at it, or stealing ideas and twisting things up, like that's your indication. And what we have to realize is that we can't afford to ignore these red flags. I'm gonna be 100% honest. You can't afford to do it, because especially one thing that I've observed in romantic relationships is that the the lessons you ignore will persist in the next relationship at a higher intensity. So if you don't learn the lesson at this relationship, the next one is going to be that much more unbearable and leave that much more scarring and be that much more difficult for you to recover from. And so it constantly increases until you heed the call, right? And again, I definitely want to see you guys at the webinar tonight. I'm gonna go deep into subjects, and just continue to vibe at 7 p.m. Eastern. The link is in the jumbotron. Definitely pull up. It's a free event. I'm trying to get us all to this next level, because I truly believe that we deserve a new stage. And I know a lot of you may be really busy in life and things like that, and kind of it can be easy to get caught in the routine. It can be easy to get caught up in overwhelm and get swept up with the undercurrent, and there's a lot of issues that we face as a people as well that require our attention and our adjustment and adaptation. But we can't forget self. If I represent anything to you uh, within this space, let it be you that I won't let you forget you, and forget to be unapologetic about replenishing yourself uh, at this next level, and being able to build consistency within it, because it's not a perfect thing, but it's about progress. And so let me let Nikki on, and then Average Black American. I'm gonna let you go after that.
No, don't let average Black American speak. He doesn't. No, just joking. Um, thank you for letting me speak, and I just have something very short to say because I am reflecting. Anyone in here who knows me knows that I'm just like that. I have this issue with being a giver, but I find that anytime I've tried to start elevating myself, a lot of people around me get upset. So I feel like when you try to change yourself, your circle gets so small, and it's like you have to rebuild your whole circle of people, your whole circle of friends, because they don't understand that the new Nikki, they don't want the new Nikki around them. They want the old Nikki who was giving them money. Anytime they asked for it, the old Nikki who would go and just clean their whole house or just do their homework for them. They don't want the new Nikki who's learning, because I'm slowly learning how to tell people no. And I'm still doing a lot of things for people, but it's a lot less than what was being done maybe 6 months ago, a year ago. So I'm just making this comment because I'm reflecting on myself. And you know that people are going to come up here and reflect. You know, right now, I'm not educating, I'm being educated. And I'm reflecting on myself and thinking, am I going to be afraid that I'm going to lose people? Or did I already have those people? Because I have had a lot of friends in my life, and I've gone to their parents' funeral, helped them, you know, they'll help them write the obituary, gotten up, stood up and rubbed their back. Couldn't get a back rub. No one, when someone died in my family, nobody cared. Times where I've gotten sick, they didn't call me. And there's people who I had just met in college who were there for me before my own sister was. I lived in a different city and I had to drive to Milwaukee every day to go to nursing school, and I couldn't stay at my sister's house, for it. That's a different story. Different story. There were other nurses who I met who would give me the keys to their house to stay at their house while they were at work, so I could go to sleep or whatever before I had to drive back, or I could stay there a couple days. There are people who I didn't even know who treated me better than my own family. So that's just a point I'm making. I'm just reflecting on myself and things that I look forward to with change when it comes to me learning to tell people no. And not because that sister of mine, she could get anything she has been able to get anything she wants from me. And I can't get that from her. I can't even get a birthday gift from her. I have friends who cash out on me, buy me all types of jewelry and everything. But my own sister, she wants me to spoil her, and she's older than me, so go figure. But that's all I had to say. Have a good day.
Nah, great insight. I'm just chime in on that. For one, for me, the term family is actions plus, bloodline. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times, when we use the term family and sister and certain people who we have an expectation of, and we get disappointed, it can be difficult to treat them according to actions, because we may feel pressure to treat them according to you know who they are, growing up with them and being a sibling or being a cousin, or different things like that. But one thing we have to do overall is move beyond the fear of that shrinking circle. So you mentioned before, as far as when you start to elevate, when you start to grow, your circle changes, and there's resistance from other people who want the old version, because a lot of times they benefit from the previous version of you. So as you start to move in a healthier direction for yourself, there may be verbal backlash, there may be different tactics behind the scenes, or there may be people that just ghost altogether, and that's the transition. It's that means you're moving in the right direction, because there's no longer that the resonance there. And we have to come to grips with the fact that this journey may leave you with zero. This journey may clear the board, but what's going to happen is, after that, you will add exponentially. You will live in an abundance of similar minded, supportive, reciprocal individuals that will seemingly come out of nowhere, because you face that fear that embedded childhood fear and worked counter to it and said, I don't care if I end up with nobody, at least I'm generating my own happiness and peace, and can nobody ruin that. But that your energy alone will put you in spaces with people who are supportive, and it sounds like it already has when it comes to people you may meet at work or in different engagements, and that's the beauty of life. It's like you can base it off of what's presented to you, and not base it on how long I've known this person, or how they're related, to me, and that sort of thing. There's no rules that we have to be overly supportive and sacrifice for people who wouldn't do the same. It's an imbalance, and the problem is that trauma creates high level fear plus imbalance. So if you're living in imbalance, it's definitely time to rebalance and be open to what's next. So yeah, average Black American, you come up
Much
next.
appreciated, brother. Love the space, and love the sharing, and definitely the points that got hit on. I love talking about people who are givers, give too much, and just don't don't get it reciprocated. It really is an energy drain too, one that goes beyond maybe your daily energy, but it goes into the energy that should be reserved for other people who really deserve your energy, who really need you to be at your best, that really need your help. And you're giving it to people who just take what you give them for granted because, you're almost like the sun. They know that you're going to be there every single day. Um, and, speaking personally, I had to set some boundaries with family and friends myself. There was a point where I took my whole family on my shoulders. I was taking care of my mother, my father, and my little sister, all on my own. And I started noticing people were kind of like really chilling on me, and I'm like, this is at a time I had no kids or nothing, but I definitely want to mate, you know what I'm saying? And start my family. And I'm like, you know, I had been doing it for a minute. I mean, I'm talking about years I was doing it, and people was like out here, they were happier than I was, you know what I'm saying? In the house that I grew up in, you know what I'm saying? I'm still living in my own childhood room. You feel me? Having to, when I go out, I got to be at my lady's house or I got to get a hotel or whatever. I'm like, man, I got enough money to have my own shit. Why don't I have my own shit? Because I'm over here pouring in everybody else's thing, their comfortability, everybody eating off of me and stuff, I mean, I'm giving out allowances and whatnot, working my ass off and not having much to show for it. And so, I started letting people know, look, I'm going to get my own shit. I'm going hunting for my own place. Y'all come with me. You can get your own place. I'll see if they can get you in too at on your own shit, you know. And things started to change from my energy change when I just got on my own away from the drain of my relationships with my parents got better. And, I mean, I will say because it was my parents I was helping and, I mean, they're good people. They're decent people. I'm like a god now to them or whatever. They talk with reverence about me because of the sacrifice. But even with that, even with being revered, to this day, and my mom always gives me my flowers, it still wasn't worth it. It still wasn't worth it. Because I was losing time, my energy, and all of that. And luckily, I had a friend, same thing. He took for granted that I just wasn't the kind of person that would call him out on his shit. I was doing him a disservice by, not trying to press things too much to make things go into uncomfortable conversations when he was being a certain kind of way. Plus, I always looked at him as like he would talk reckless sometimes, and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to have to slap this dude to sleep. We have a huge size difference, so I had to look at him kind of like, oh man, you the little dude. Like I'm gonna let you, but I was creating a monster. I was creating bigger issues with other friends of mine. They like, hey man, I know that's your friend, but I'm gonna have to knock your boy out. So I started having to be in conflicts, and it was because I wouldn't address him. And so now I got conflicts with other people who respect me, but they they want to get at him the way I should have gotten him. you know? So I had to start being more assertive. And then to land my plane, the last part is once I started making changes, and this dude I'm talking about, best man at my wedding, I ain't spoke to him in like 2.5 years. And I've never felt better. Like I got used to the routine of not having to deal with his energy drain. So you take that deep breath. It's like I don't miss the friendship. If he died tomorrow, I talk to my goddaughter and say, you know, that's unfortunate and all of that. But I could live with that because I'm in such a good place. And then my wife is just like me in being that person in the family everybody depends on. And I'm helping her transition into this newer phase, what it means and how that's gonna help you, you know, because people depend on us to be the ones that always pay for shit. Look out, you know. Y'all got it. And I told her, I said, people be playing broke so they can say their little resources because they know you gonna get it. So they get to benefit, keep their little money and shit. And meanwhile, everything's coming out of our household. And I'm like, we got kids now. I'm not I'm not sacrificing nothing out of my kids' mouth, enjoyment or even the extra things, the abundance that we have to help other people out, you know? And to really land my plane, um, her mother got like 8 kids. They got like she's one of 10. Her father, they both had 2 kids before they got together and 6 kids together. So it's a lot of people they could like lean on. And they asking us, oh yeah, you know, we need some water or whatever. Can y'all buy us, you know, pay for our water every month? And I'm like, wait a minute. You got a sister that's a doctor. Why ain't she doing all her money? I'm like, nah, 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 nah. And then wait a few months, her sister about to buy a whole fucking RV. I'm like, your sister couldn't pay for water playing broke. Now she about to buy an RV that's like 150 grand. Man, if you don't get the hell out of here with that. So people will just take from you, take. And as long as you give and play the fool, you're gonna keep playing that fool. You're gonna keep signing up for that damn show. And you're gonna keep having to perform and everybody clapping at your ass, but you ain't enjoying shit. So I'll just land it there.
Man, the RV though, that's heavy. That's heavy right there. And I, no, thank you for sharing, man. It makes perfect sense. And it goes back to the fact that it's one thing. It's very important to have just the self awareness to realize, like, or to ask. All need to just really be asking ourselves questions when we see results that we don't like, and it's like, what's motivating me to allow this? And a lot of times, when it comes to specifically black men, there's a savior socialization that kind of comes, and to the point where we feel like we have to be superhuman. I forgot. I'm trying to think of the guy's name. Is it John Henry, where he was still driving, and his heart gave until his heart gave out, and they still have a statue of him too. But that's like one of those stories that is very much symbolic of how we can at times put ourselves in position to overwork and self sabotage, like into death sometimes, like, because that stress, if you think of you know the rate of heart attacks when it comes to, especially just some of the older black men, but even younger black men sometimes, like, because that when you're in constant stress and socialized to not be able to, one, take care of yourself, but two, to not be able to have your emotions validated, and to sometimes do it to yourself, where you be like, damn, I'm not in the mood right now, but nah, I gotta man up. I gotta do this anyway. They counting on me, and then so you get it's a tendency that sometimes we can get into this mode where we even deny ourselves relief or validation of how we're feeling physically or emotionally, and then push ourselves into these tasks, and constantly be helping this one, supporting this one, not getting sleep, not having being able to work out, not being able to even have your own space, and your life gets further and further confined, and nobody's stopping it, right? Everybody around you, they got smiles, they got awards, they got cakes with candles. They like, this person is you the GOAT for helping us. Don't take no breaks though. You the man, you know what I mean? But as long as you continue with what you doing, don't get any ideas about taking care of yourself. We ain't really on that. And so it's kind of like a lot of these jobs, right? They're not gonna give you mental health days off. They're not gonna see you coming in drained and messed up and say, you ain't looking so good, man. Why don't you just take the rest of the day off and chill? We got it. You're not gonna hear that. They'll work you into the ground. And then, as they say on social media, they'll have somebody in there tomorrow. You'll be replaced in a second. They'll have a moment of silence in the break room, and they have interviews at 1 o'clock. So, to you, average Black American, what you were saying is important because you came to the realization on your own. You didn't have to reach your demise, or you didn't have to reach a health diagnosis or a doctor's recommendation to lower stress. At some point, you hit the crossroads and said, "All right, the only way this is going to shift is if I start making shifts that with myself in mind." Because, and to your other point too, this is something that happens a lot that I see. Right, there'll be other options. So a lot of times when we have this savior complex or this savior mentality, we feel like we the only one. We got the S on our chest. Everybody, there's no other heroes in Metropolis. But what we find out is that when you press further, or when you press back against some of the requests, you'll realize that there's a plethora of other options. The difference is you're the easiest option. You're the path of least resistance, because all I got to do is ask him, and he gonna give it to me. If I ask so and so, they gonna hide. They're gonna hide between 12 layers of BS, and I gotta find my. I would have to find my way in, right? I would have to guilt them. I would have to track them down. I would have to, or this other person is gonna make me feel a way when I request it, right? They're gonna either say no blatantly, or they're gonna make me feel bad for asking. And instead of doing all that, I'm gonna ask him, because the last 50 times I asked him, he just went and did it, right? And so, problem solving based on with self care in mind is always something that's possible. You know what I'm saying? Finding other solutions, and kind of delegating some of the tasks, and a lot of times giving those verbal options without having to be present and actually doing the thing, right? And doing that consistently conditions people to then make different choices, or to take your advice and choose other options, because you have to be the representative of how you should be treated, in that if you aren't going to go beyond the threshold of self-care versus self-sabotage. If you start to act in that way, they can do nothing but respect it, or not. And if not, it's not gonna destroy you, at the end of the day. Go ahead.
Just real quick, wanted to say too, to what you were saying, when you finally do set those boundaries and you finally say no, one of the craziest things that happens is people forget seemingly right away all the times that you've been there for them, that you done looked out for them. They act like you didn't do none of that. It's like y'all started from zero. You don't have any capital with them at all. And you the one that did everything, and you ain't got no credit with them to say no, to have a break or nothing. It's the craziest thing.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. The convenient amnesia, as if you're on, you know, it's like playing a game, and then you beat stage one, and then pause it, save it, come back tomorrow, and you on stage one, and you like, well, how the hell? I know, I got a track record. I know I done beat this. Destroy the boss and end up back at the first level. There's a glitch. There's a glitch in this game, and a lot of times there's a glitch in these relationships, like to where how is it? You almost got to be an attorney. Like you got to reference exhibit A through F. Like remember, I'm still that person that did all this. A lot of times the evidence is in the same room that you having the conversation. Like what you sitting in, I built what you sitting in. What you mean? I ain't what you mean I ain't been there? You crazy? But it's an attempt to activate that savior mentality again because they know it's in there. So it's almost like, I gotta make you feel guilty, and right now you don't feel guilty because you know what you done did. So I gotta make you feel like you haven't done anything recently, which is hard to do because a lot of times I was just here yesterday. I was. What you mean I ain't been here? I was here yesterday. You don't call nobody. I called you this morning. So it's one of those things where, and it could be tough with family. Family is wild, man. They'll put you in a zone. But it's you want to be able to walk away enough times until they get the picture. And that, and again, you got to look at it too, like it's conditioning, but you're dealing with people that know you your whole life. So to try to start acting different, some family members may think that's just a phase. They trying to get you back to who you used to be. And but the benefits come from the boundaries. And a lot of times we have to let even people that are relatives, parents, grandparents, sometimes we need to show them that we're at an age now where we dictate our boundaries, and how much we how much support we provide within a certain context, because there has to be limits. There can't just be this, well, because honor your father and mother, so that means that you got to do any and everything to your own detriment, like, and just and hit the early grave because and then they put on your tombstone, they did right by their parents. But now who gonna do it now? If since I was the only one, now since I was the only one that could help, and now I'm dead, like, I guess y'all gonna die with me because y'all remember y'all didn't have no help. It was just me, and you'll find that even in that extreme case, there's other solutions available at all times. So, definitely keeping self-care at the forefront and clearly defining it, because if you don't have it clearly defined, they will press every guilt, self-esteem, savior button, rescuer button that you have to get you into service mode. And you have to define what your threshold is. You have to define when you need time to recuperate, or when you do have the time and energy, right? When it comes to my family, most of my family's up in Jersey, a lot of my great aunts or whatever, you know what I'm saying? And I always go up there, whether it's doing yard work or, just helping around, whatever they need. When I go up there with a full tank so that whatever they need while I'm there, it's getting done. You know what I'm saying? So, but that's because I go up fully charged. You know what I'm saying? If there was a scenario where there was an everyday need, that wouldn't be possible. And I it's one of those things that clearly define the boundaries, be able to explain them if necessary, and then reinforce and re-explain. at times, right? And it's not just from a giving, from a physically giving and supporting standpoint. A lot of times, certain family members need boundaries on how they talking to you. Sometimes, family, you could be 50, you could be 50, and they talking to you like you 5 years old, or just the type of things they talk about or what they bring up. A lot of times, old school family can be very triggering at times, and it may not. Sometimes it may be intentional. Sometimes it may not be. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, if it's triggering for you, you don't have to feel obligated to endure that. You may have to have a conversation that says, "Hey, I want to talk to you. I want to keep in contact. I want to show up." But in order to do so, I need you to, make these adjustments. I'm politely requesting that you make these particular adjustments because this is triggering. And what'll end up happening is you create either or situation that you have to be okay with on any result. So either they're gonna say, "I respect that. I'm gonna work on that. You got it." Because I value the relationship. I want to continue to talk to you. I want to keep the contact and communication. So I'm with that. And then you can monitor the results and keep the contact, right? Or they could say, "Hell no, I ain't doing all that. You asking too much. I'm gonna say what I want to say." And, then you have to be prepared to say, "Okay, then we can't talk. We can't converse on that level. You know what I'm saying? And be willing to stand on it, because you don't, you shouldn't have to. And loyalty doesn't mean that you have to endure a person's free reign of emotions and actions, um, as for the rest of your life. Can't be the case, because then you are basically saying that you're not deserving of respect, and that you're not deserving of having a personal level of peace. And so, but yeah, but thank you everybody who came up and shared. I appreciate all of the energy, and all of the backstories and everything like that. For those of you who may be new, this is a space that I conduct every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Eastern. I usually go for an hour, but I'm going a little bit longer today because the energy was here. You know what I'm saying? And so it's called Above Trauma Tuesdays. Every Tuesday, I'm having this space, and the topics have changed. If you want to check the replays, I've been doing it for a few weeks now, so all of the replays are the old spaces. I have them on YouTube, but I also have them on my feed as well. Tonight, in about 25 minutes, I'm doing a webinar on the keys to healing Black trauma. So that's a free event. So definitely look in the Jumbotron. And the second slide, click on that. You guys still got a little bit of time to register and pop in. We're gonna be talking about some of the keys to healing and working counter to these parts of your personality that were formed from your childhood environment. Because as you see, this stuff sticks around. This isn't like you cut your knee when you fell off your bike when you were 7 and it healed up within 3 days. This isn't something that heals with time. This is something that solidifies with time, right? So when people say time heals all wounds, I don't agree with that. And I think a lot of times we can fall into worse situations by thinking that. If part of your trauma makes for a tough cycle of dating or toxic cycle of dating, you can take a break from dating and still be at the same spot once you decide to start dating. I have a friend who took 10 years off, because she had a bad breakup or whatever, and it was like, I'm gonna take 10 years off from dating, anybody, in the expectation that when she re-entered, she would be healed from everything that she went through with the previous ex. What ended up happening is the first person that she started to date, and she wasn't sleeping with anybody as well. So she slept with this new person, started dating this new person. Everything was moving pretty fast, and then that ended up being a toxic situation as well. And it was doubly, it affected her even worse than that type of breakup normally would, because of the broken expectation, the disappointment that she was of the thinking that I'm gonna be attracting different because of the time that I took off. But it's not. We oftentimes we think of healing in the sense of how we physically heal. Like, we know that certain cuts and scrapes heal on their own physically. We know what that's like. So a lot of times we look at emotional healing the same way. Well, if I just stay out of the game, my heart can heal and I can just get back in, and it'll be good when I get back in. But or my knees, I injure my knee, or I'm in a cast and I'm not, that I'm out of the cast, I'm on crutches. That you see physical progression based on time and based on sitting out of the game, being on the bench. But with trauma, it's not the case. It's part of your personality, it's part of your subconscious, it's part of your programming. Which is why we view these as personality traits. But personality traits, absorbed from trauma, are able to be changed, to be improved, and to be released and replaced with better habits, with healthier habits, with more self-care based habits. And it will drastically improve every area of life, because trauma infects every area of life. Just like I mentioned, it's not just the partners you pick, it's the friends you pick with similar traits. It's the exploitive job positions that you choose and stay in. And so this overwhelm and over sacrifice becomes your life. And although you don't choose family, you choose to stay beholden to them at your own expense at times. It's not to say don't look out for family. It's to say, if there's no limitations and no boundaries, then you're in for a tough life that will age you faster, that will ruin every area of health, and it'll make it very difficult to find peace and happiness. And it continues the cycle, because you'll look for it in somebody else, and you'll constantly be disappointed because you're not be able to find it. So hit that button. We got 20 minutes. I'm gonna get everything queued up on my end. Hopefully I'll see you guys in there. If not, be sure to come back next Tuesday. Again, this is every Tuesday, so make sure to follow, hit the notifications and everything like that. Uh, you know, it's an ongoing thing. I'm looking to help you to build consistency within your life. And for me, I want to be an example of that as well. So to be a consistent part of your life, to be able to give you what you need to continue this thing, to make healing a consistency, because that's how you change subconscious programming and all of these personality traits, is creating consistency within the habits, and making your fear obsolete. There's a lot of changes that happen when you have those traumatic events, especially if you think of PTSD. The hippocampus, amygdala, all the reptilian brain, everything that's activated and everything that reaches those levels of imbalance, create more imbalance moving forward in your life. So let's get things balanced up. I appreciate y'all as always, and I'll see you in the webinar tonight.
This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.